Do you believe in the power of synchronicity, in those moments where everything lines up so beautifully it feels like magic? Welcome to The Flow Show, where we explore these flow stories, the miracles, coincidences, and moments of awe that remind us we're connected to something greater. I'm Joanna Turner, and I'm thrilled to share this journey with you. Each week, we'll dive into inspiring interviews, planetary grid work, and tools for spiritual and personal mastery. Whether it's business, life, or alignment, we'll help you tap into your unique flow. Let's dive in. And today, I wanted to talk about a phenomenon you might have heard about called the Telepathy Tapes podcast. Now, this podcast has come out of almost nowhere and become the #1 downloaded podcast, even beating Joe Rogan, who has, 13 million downloads per episode or something crazy like that. And this has just come out of nowhere and eclipsed it. And I find that amazing. I stumbled upon it. I don't even know where it was in my, maybe for you, your suggested podcast or something. And I thought that sounds up my street. Didn't have a clue what it was about. Hadn't heard any of the hype or anything. And I was very pleasantly surprised and have really enjoyed it. I have absolutely no affiliation with it, but I guess this is an ad. I think you should go and totally tune in and check it out. And it has created a bit of controversy. So people don't like change. And we talked in the last episode a little bit about how when things shift, it can, if people start to feel things are different, they don't feel safe, they can kick off. Like, people don't like it. If it challenges their identity or their norms or the beliefs, and it's too much for them, they don't like it. So it has been interesting. I'm going to read out the whole blurb from the official podcast, so as you get an understanding and we sort of set the scene. You might want to go and binge it right now. There's 10, 12 episodes. Season 2, I think she's done 2 episodes into season 2, which I've also listened to. But there's season 1. You can definitely get up to speed on it pretty quickly. It is fascinating. And yeah, we'll talk a little bit about it. But what I'm so excited about is, I mentioned in the last episode, this is a massive year of spiritual awakening. And to me, the telepathy tapes are I was going to say a symptom, I guess a symptom of that, and a shining example of exactly what we're meaning by that. For something about telepathy to be the #1 downloaded podcast is bananas. That would not have happened 2 years ago, 4 years ago, 10 years ago, certainly. It just would not have even captured the zeitgeist, the imagination of the people. And I feel like the popularity it's causing and the little bit of upset within the community is just highlighting how much people are thirsty for this information. They are excited about it. They're exploring their spirituality. They're becoming aware that there is more than just our physical reality. And that is exciting. It's very exciting. And now, I'm guessing you guys listening to this might not be totally skeptical. You might totally be absolutely skeptical, and you have every right to be. That is up to you. But if you're listening to something, I've talked about spirituality. Obviously, I read the Akashic Records, which is a very psychic thing to do. And so I know that there is more. I'm very tapped into the other world, I suppose you could say. And even I was like, wow, these guys have some skills. Like way beyond what I have, and just incredible. So just really, really blown away by it. So I will read you, so as we're all on the same page and understanding what I'm on about, I will read you the whole little blurb that they have just to set the scene before we dive in a little more. So and this podcast is by Kai Dickens. So, in a world that often dismisses the extraordinary as mere fantasy, the Telepathy Tapes dares to explore the profound abilities of non-speakers with autism, individuals who have long been misunderstood and underestimated. These silent communicators possess gifts that defy conventional understanding, from telepathy to otherworldly perceptions, challenging the limits of what we believe to be real. For years, their parents and teachers have quietly witnessed these remarkable abilities, knowing that the time to share their truth would eventually come. But now, as the evidence mounts, the time has come to reveal what has been hidden in plain sight. This groundbreaking series challenges everything we think we know about communication and the human mind, inviting viewers to step into a reality where the impossible is not only possible, but happening every day. Through emotional stories and undeniable evidence, the Telepathy Tapes offers a fresh perspective on the profound connections that exist beyond words. Travelling with neuroscientist Dr. Diane Hennessy Powell, witnessing mind-boggling telepathy tests and forging deeply intimate relationships with families around the globe, host Kai Dickens invites you to contemplate the world through the eyes of those who speak without words. Prepare to be captivated, challenged, and ultimately transformed as the series shines a light on the untold capabilities of those who have been underestimated for far too long. So that sets the scene on what it's about. So it's basically non-speakers with autism who maybe have been are heavily disabled. But obviously it's a big spectrum of where they are. A lot of these kids, they are unable to speak. They can't speak. Some of them are very physically disabled. Some of them are able to spell with the help of like a computer keyboard. They'll very slowly get their words out, but they can spell and communicate that way. And their profound gifts have just been utterly like amazing. And obviously so many people are fascinated by this and really interested in it. Now, while I was listening to it, I quite often read the comments on podcasts. They are very useful, by the way. If you ever wanted to comment on my podcast, I would be much obliged and give it a review. But the comments are very useful in terms of getting your podcast reach further with people. And I would read the comments, and they were quite positive generally for the first maybe 5 episodes. But once it then takes a sort of even more ethereal, esoteric, spiritual turn, and the people in the comments start flipping out. They are not having any of it. They're kind of like, oh, I was in agreement with you up until now, but now you've just gone too far. This is too much. We don't believe it. This is suddenly, it's not scientific. It's all hearsay. You're making it up. The usual things. Starting to attack her, to attack the doctor she works with, and the vitriol and the upset that is coming out of people who are not connected to this, and some people who are connected to the world of autism. They are angry that she's even talking about this, and I find that fascinating. But big part of the reason that this has not been discussed up until now is because, like it said in that intro, some teachers and parents and people that work with non-verbal people with autism have known for a very long time that they communicate telepathically, except that they have kept quiet and not wanted to share it because they were worried that if they would lose their jobs if they were the teacher, or have their child taken away from them even if they start talking about this stuff. It is so feared and worried about. And so I really applaud her and the families that are involved in the podcast for coming out effectively as spiritual. I remember I had to come out of the spiritual closet to my parents, and they were like, oh really, do you have to be? And they were not happy about it at all. But it's because the people fear what they don't understand, and the way that the podcast is shared, I think, is brilliant. It's very, very well produced. It is clear. It is sort of takes you on a journey. You get to know the families and the stories, and I was just utterly mesmerized by it. So, of course, there is stigma to this, and so speaking out, they are going to meet resistance, and it is coming in thick and fast, and to the degree that the let me just read one little quote here from the Association for Science in Autism Treatment. They issued a statement saying, the Telepathy Tapes podcast spreads misinformation about the authenticity of facilitated communication and the presence of paranormal abilities in non-speaking autistic individuals. So they are not having any of it. They're accusing her of spreading misinformation. And we know from the last 4 or 5 years, if you are accused of spreading misinformation, it is probably true. Let's be honest. So, but you have to obviously make up your own mind and tune in and listen to it for yourself and see what you think. I did a little bit of research. I wasn't even sure the level of the controversies, but people just are hating it. And there's like all sorts of Reddit threads and people just getting really angry about the whole thing. But they're really not stopping to listen and take and hear what these children are trying to communicate. And what they are communicating is a message of love, community, support, humor, empathy beyond, and it's just there is nothing frightening about it. There is nothing mean or anything. There's no negativity around it. Even what they're sharing, it's all really positive and a beautiful thing to know. I think I would much rather know that somebody nonverbal is communicating and has a whole world beyond the physical, because they're not able to fully participate in the physical world, but they have another world that they can tap into and a community that they can tap into. And I think part of where it got a little bit too much for people was, it was like they could almost appreciate that maybe the child is aware of what the mother is thinking, or maybe a teacher tuning in. But once they started talking about this place that they go together after hours and after school and in the middle of the night called the Hill, and they communicate with children all over the world on this hill at night, then people really started freaking out. They were like, yeah, there's just no way. But they are learning things in this other space that they're visiting. They're sharing information and teaching each other, and they are like learning in this whole nother level, and it is amazing. And there have been some verbal people connected to this podcast who have been able to visit this magical place called the Hill, and the beautiful thing is one of the guys that went to visit was let in because the community and the nonverbal children knew that he was a friend. They knew he had a good heart and a good intention, and he was allowed access. You cannot get access to this place if you have bad intentions and are coming at it from a bad place. So beautiful, the fact that he was allowed in. And it's a little bit like, for me, I wonder if they are tapping into the Akashic Records, right? If these children are able to go and learn all of this information, connect with one another, I feel like if they're not in the Akashic Records, it's an extension of it, or they're connecting to it to be able to learn all this information and sort of teach each other through the records. So I feel like there's a lovely connection with the Akashic Records, and what they're doing, I believe, is they're able to be so tapped in because they're not so distracted by all the other things that we're distracted by. They're really able to tune into that intuitive and obviously telepathic ability, which I believe we all have. I think that's the other thing. Anyone can read the Akashic Records, but the level that you are able to do it and participate in it really comes down to the amount you trust, the amount you trust your intuition, you trust the information, you trust yourself to interpret it and to tap in. And I think that's what these kids, they don't have all of that other noise. They maybe don't have that the rest of society has. And so I think that's why they're able to hear so clearly, is because they don't have all the other stuff going on. You often find that people who don't have, whether it's a physical ability or they've lost a sense, their sight, their hearing, their whatever, their other senses become really heightened. And I think when these children are non-verbal or disabled in some way, that it's probably allowed their intuition and their telepathy to be heightened because of that. There's the example I just came to my mind was the Christmas Cosland, who was he's a blind comedian, but he did the Strictly Come Dancing, and he actually just won it in the last series, completely blind. And his musicality and his ability to, his spatial awareness and his musicality were unbelievable. He did not miss a step throughout the whole series, and he was just incredible. And so his other senses are heightened, even though he doesn't have his sight. So he was incredible and inspiring and breaking these barriers down for his community. And I feel like these children are doing something similar, and their stories are just ready to be told, which is really exciting. So let's see. So you just need to go and listen to it. Really, it's just so good. So yeah, there's one. So I think there's a research that I think done in 2022 is that 37% of people believe they've experienced some form of telepathy. I think that we know it at some level, whether you have thought about a person and then they've phoned, or they have the emails turned up, or you've turned the corner and there they are. It happened to me on last Saturday. I was out on a second date. I've also had a third, so fingers crossed, guys. But I was on a second date, and I told this guy we walked the dogs. He's got a little dog as well. He brought his dog along, and we walked for hours and hours and hours along the side of a river. And it was just lovely. And I was telling him the story about a girl, and I haven't seen this girl since I got back to the UK 3.5 years ago. And she's an old friend, and she does just live up the road, but we've not been in touch since I got back. I haven't seen her. There's been a few parties and things that I thought she might be at, but she wasn't there, and we've just not connected for whatever reason. And I had not thought about her also, like, particularly recently. Maybe her birthday flashed up on Facebook or something like that, but I haven't given it too much thought. Anyway, I tell him that story about something that happened many, many years ago, and then lo and behold, we went into this cafe to get lunch, and who turns up? This girl. And I was like, oh, hi. She's like, hi. And we're like, oh. And it was like a little bit like awkward. She's there with her mom and her wee boy, and we had a little catch up. And I'm like, hi, I'm on a second date. This is this guy. And so it was just so funny. I turned to, and he was like, oh, is this? And it's funny, on our first date, we'd also bumped into somebody I knew. I bumped into my cousin and her friend on our first date. And he's like, is this another family member? Like, are you setting this up? Like, do you know someone every single place you go? For somebody who's not lived in the country for nearly 20 years, that's quite a good hit rate for bumping into people. Last year I was on a date with somebody else and bumped into another old friend. So yeah, I seem to bump into people quite regularly. And he was just like, oh my gosh, is this another family member? And I was like, no, this is my friend. And then she went away, and I was like, that's what I was actually told you a story about her earlier. And he was like, no way, that same person. So I just thought it was so funny. But yeah, so that could be a form of telepathy if I hadn't been thinking about her, and then I bump into her like half an hour later. That is a bit spooky. So I'm sure you have experienced something similar. You often it can be a gut feeling. Sometimes it's often twins obviously are very telepathically connected. If a twin is in danger, the other one, or it feels pain, the other one often even feels it within their body. I saw a little thing, I don't know, maybe it was on Instagram the other day, and it was twins. One was sick and stayed home from school, and the other one felt this like overwhelming sense of like fear and anxiety out of nowhere, and was like, we need to go and get my sister. And they went to the school to check on her, and she'd missed the bus home, and she was like in all sorts of fear and panic or something. So often it can be that kind of connection. My sister and I often will, we're not twins, but she said to me the other day, she was like, I think we might be connected like that. And I said, oh, for sure. Because we often will turn up basically in the same outfit for the same occasion. We'll just look at each other and we're like, oh God. And we'll roll our eyes. We're like, not again. But it is quite funny. So I'm sure you've experienced something like that. Often mothers are very connected to their children. They will sense something's wrong, or they'll get an urge to go and pick the child up early, go and check on them or something like that. Often that is a connection that they experience as well. So it's it can feel hard to believe, but I would say this study found that 37% of people had experienced something like that before. So it's not like totally out of most people's availability to believe, but what they were sharing and the abilities were definitely beyond anything I've experienced, which is all very exciting. So yeah, in the study, it starts out talking about it starts at a very basic level of what can the child pick out the color that the parent is looking at, or a word or a symbol, and you know, these kids were getting 100% accuracy rates on that kind of thing, and there was one a teacher and a teacher assistant, they went out for lunch and came back, and the child knew exactly what they both had for lunch, even though they didn't say beforehand, oh, try and tune in and know what we had for lunch. And I don't think they even knew what each other had for their lunch. You know, they just ordered and ate whatever. But the kid knew exactly what they'd both had for their lunch. And things like that, you're like, hang on a second, how is that possible? I don't know. But yeah, and one of the kids knew what the mother was reading in her book, like, you know, or knew what she was watching on TV. And there was one mother who was really upset by it all, because she had, before she knew about this, and because a lot of these kids, they can't tell you that they know what you're thinking or feeling or what's going on in the house. There was one mum who'd nearly given up, and then she felt intense amounts of guilt, because she was like, oh my God, my child has actually been in there the whole time. We've just not been able to tap into to being able to communicate. So you know, these things, and I think the people lashing out, maybe they're in that camp where they're like, no, this is actually, my child just cannot communicate, full stop, and blah, you know, and they want to be, you know, they want to sort of almost defend that position, as opposed to maybe exploring and seeing what is possible, what could be possible. Because if you've assumed that your child can't communicate for their first 16 years of life, and then you suddenly discover that they do know what's going on and they understand way more than you realized, that would be incredibly, incredibly confronting and upsetting, I would imagine. So it's yeah, it's just something to bear in mind. If you do see the controversy and criticism, you know, everything should be examined. I get it. But they're just very quickly, people are so quick to discredit things, not believe people. And I think that's why it's taken so long for this obviously to come out, because they knew they were going to face a whole lot of criticism. But yet, so many people are curious, so many people are interested. And I think so many people are ready for this information and they're ready for more, which is really exciting. So yeah, I would just, highly, highly recommend it. I don't want to bang on about it too much because I do want you to just go and listen to it, and please reach out and let me know what your thoughts are on it. Do you think it's great, or do you believe it? Do you not believe it? I obviously, it is all open to whatever your perspective and opinions are on the subject, but it is just a really exciting space to explore. And obviously, as somebody who reads the Akashic Records, I teach the Akashic Records. If it is something you are curious about, I would be happy to either do a reading for you, or let me know if you would like to tap in and learn for yourself, because anybody can do it. And I find it is so empowering when you tap into that ability to get access to this vast amount of information. It is a really exciting space to be in. So I will put some details in the show notes about that if you're interested. I've been in the process. I've been a little bit stalled in it, but I was uploading all my courses and everything onto a new website. It's not quite, the automation is not quite finessed, but I can figure it out and sort of put it together. And if you are interested, let me know, and we can I can figure that out for you and let you have access to this new platform, which is all set up and ready to go, almost. So yeah, let me know if you're interested in that. And I think that is it for now. I won't bang on too much. I will let you go and explore for yourself. Anyway, as always, we really appreciate likes, shares and reviews. If this has been interesting, definitely share it. I would love that. And let me know your thoughts on the Telepathy Tapes. And I look forward to the rest of season 2. And because I listened to it and I didn't think I'd be talking about it, so I didn't take any notes. But when I might re-listen to it, and during season 2, I will definitely take more notes. And we'll maybe have a part 2 after season 2. Let's see. All right, take care. I'll speak to you soon. Bye.